It's showing
So good night, everybody.
Good
We
night.
are just going to allow for a few minutes to pass by. Please tell us if you can hear us, so that we can make any adjustments. So good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night. And it's nice to be back again. It's another quiet Monday evening for us. And hope it's a good one for you also. So, as Nevin said, we're just waiting for few more persons to come on, and then we'll start this evening's Muddy Puddles. I know it's a little late, but for us it is ideal, and we hope it is something that helps you wind down in your evening times, unless you're an early sleeper.
And those who are early sleepers, thank you for tuning in at this time. So we want you to share the live as you come on. Share it, copy it, and put it on your WhatsApp, to as many persons as you can. And a couple minutes we'll begin.
Minutes or a couple seconds?
Couple seconds.
Hi, Sister Jane. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
See Rob. See Chanel. Belinda. Rev.
Yeah.
Yes, Belinda. Good night, guys. So tell us if you're hearing us, if the sound is coming through clearly, because we're trying something new again. So we hope we don't have to switch up too much in the evening. We don't have all the technological devices yet. So we're using what we have and trusting God to make it work.
Yep. So it's Muddy Puddles, and as we said, we're using the term that is used in Peppa Pig, partly because we're raising young children, and we're saying that life will offer you some tough times. Some rain might fall, there might be a few storms, and out of those storms may come muddy puddles. But we believe the muddy puddles may offer opportunity for growth, may offer opportunity, may even give you a chance to have fun and to grow through it. So we thank you for being here tonight. Last week we looked at some building blocks for relationships, and so tonight, Billy, we'll be looking at trust.
One of those, yes.
We're looking at one of those building blocks, trust issues. We are exploring this topic because we believe trust is a building block. You cannot have a thriving, fulfilling marriage or relationship, any kind of relationship, platonic or romantic, unless there is trust.
Isn't it also true that in your, even in your setting, the pastoral relationship, in Christian relationships, spiritual relationships, there has to be that measure of trust. Also. So no matter what relationship you are in, and all of us are in one or more types of relationship, I'm sure we can all identify the need and the benefit of having trust among those partners in the relationship. So
let's define trust then.
Okay, so I'll start with that. So when we talk about trust, we're looking at something that is what we call multidimensional. So at every level of the relationship, every stage of the relationship, trust is there, or trust should be there, and trust will always be an issue. So you can't have a good relationship without trust, like we said. And generally, trust speaks to having confidence in the person, seeing the person as reliable, knowing that you could depend on that person to, one, be true to their words, to do what they say they will do, and also to defend you, to have your back. The other big thing about trust is that trust speaks to vulnerability. So think about vulnerability as being naked. Now, you won't go naked before the whole world, but trust says I'm able to be vulnerable before this person or these persons and know that they will keep me safe even though I am being vulnerable or naked, or I'm showing, the part that, all of the world doesn't see. So in a nutshell, trust is just being able to depend on, rely on, and know that the person has your best interest at heart.
Yes. And trust is very important. And I think a little bit more important to women. This might be controversial. Maybe a little bit more important to women than men, because trust builds intimacy.
Yes.
There are very few women who will be intimate if there is no trust. And so that's part of the reason why it is so critical. And so if you have trust issues, you will have some control issues also. Billy, you can talk about that.
Right. Okay, so one of the things is that, and if somebody's saying volume facey, that's how I pronounce it.
Yes.
We're going to have to try to work on
Yes.
that so we don't have people struggling to hear. But where trust, another aspect of trust, we talk about the control, is that because you're able to be vulnerable, you're able to feel at ease with the person. So in the relationship, you don't feel like you have to control everything because you're not confident, or you don't trust what the person is going to do or is saying, or is even thinking. You see, so many times a person who has trust issues would want to control everything because they think if they control, that is how they can determine the outcome, right? And a key thing to mention is that many people go into relationships, and even especially romantic relationships, marriages, but also friendships, with trust issues. And a lot of these trust issues come from their childhood, where past relationships, even work, because trust is a big part of corporations. And if you can't trust your boss, you can't trust your co-workers, it's very difficult for you to feel comfortable at that setting and be productive. So people come in with these trust issues, and if they're not in a place where they feel safe, because trust brings safety, that confidence makes you feel I could relax. Not that you don't have to do anything, but I know this person has my back. So if they don't have that, if they have the trust issues, they won't feel safe, and then vulnerability won't be there. Open communication will be difficult. Open and honest communication will be difficult. And moving forward, building together is difficult because you don't trust.
That's right. And so trust is absolutely important. And so as a result of that, and the fact that marriage and relationships generally, whatever the relationship is, I can assure you, your relationships will have its ups and downs. There will be hills and valleys. There will be some highs and some lows. And sometimes these are caused by some issues that may have arisen, that may have developed the mistrust, right? And so there are ways that trust can be broken. We're going to highlight a few of them.
Wait, let me ask you a question before you go there. So there's this argument, so I want to hear, and we can shift it for the persons.
Yes.
In a relationship, are we talking about marriage as well? But let's look at that one, I guess, because it is the question. But some platonic relationships are deep with this. Is trust more important than love?
That's an interesting one.
And that's a big one.
I'm not sure one is more important than the other.
But can you have trust without love? Or
can you have love without trust?
Can you have love without trust?
They work hand in hand.
Okay.
They're hand and foot, or
hand and glove.
Hand and glove. They're absolutely necessary.
Okay.
Yes? Possibly your love, because remember we define love not as a feeling and so forth. Love is more of a commitment. Love is devotion. It is possible that you can, there can be love without the trust.
Yes, but that's a dangerous combination.
That's a dangerous combination.
But you could have trust and not necessarily have love, but I can guarantee you, if you have trust and trust is strong, love will develop, love will grow. Yes.
But they need each other.
Yes.
They're absolutely necessary. Somebody's asking, so how do you deal with someone who comes into your life with trust issues because of their past relationships? That's a heavy one.
Don't be start. Thank you for that.
That's an excellent question.
Yeah, it is.
Brittany.
And go ahead. You want to start?
So that's the issue. And that's why we encourage counseling, whether it's a relationship you're in or you're going into a marriage.
Right.
Because most of us have gone through previous relationships, some more than others, some deeper than others, based on how deep that relationship may have been. If it ended acrimoniously, if it ended with the person breaking that trust, I can assure you, unless you deal with that, it is going to follow you. In fact, this is the issue. Sometimes the person that you broke up with, praise God you broke up with them because they weren't good for you. And then God brings somebody in your life that was really for you. But then you miss out on a fulfilling relationship because you're still carrying with you the person that left you or treated you badly.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
What I'm saying is, if you carry on those baggages, that trust baggage, that's mistrust baggage, into your relationships, you're going to miss out on a good relationship.
But that's for those who come in with the issues. But the one who is dealing with the person who has the trust issues,
right.
The other side to that, I think, in addition to what he said, that's for the person who has the trust issues themselves.
Yeah.
But for the person who's living or having that
dealing with somebody who
dealing
has
with them, it's important that you demonstrate, one, verbally, that you are trustworthy, and then you demonstrate that you are trustworthy. Because the big thing about trust is more than just speaking. Trust is developed, because trust is not an innate thing, like once you love, you trust. I think we already established that.
It's action-oriented.
Action-oriented. It's kind of like the love. It's an action verb. It's a verb. So you must demonstrate that you are trustworthy, and this relationship, because relationship builds a space, that the space of this relationship can be trusted because you are trustworthy.
Yeah.
And so
the person who has that those trust issues, it can really cause some trouble in your relationship.
Right.
And how do you deal with that? The truth is, unless that person deals with it, I'm not sure you can do much. Yeah? Bitly?
You can, in terms of changing them, you can. Because what I'm talking about, making sure that you are trustworthy and demonstrating to them and reinforcing
that might reassure them.
Right. But then that person still has to make the choice to trust you.
Have to take the
and
leap.
To become vulnerable, right.
It's really a leap, you know.
It's a leap of faith. And sometimes it's very, very difficult based on how deep the scars are and how current the scars are from. Remember, like we said, all scars don't come from romantic relationships.
That's right.
You have situations where children grew up in homes where they couldn't trust their parents.
Yep.
And your parents are your foundational.
Yeah, they're the example of what a marital relationship would be, how you treat a woman, how you treat a man.
And so they come from that and go into a relationship and think that trust is a fallacy.
Right.
So they don't know how to trust their partner.
Or the version of the trust, or the version of how trust was demonstrated was a bad one.
Yes.
Let me give an example.
Yes.
So if the wife had a problem trusting the man with money, or whatever the issue is, that mommy used to hide the money under the bed, don't tell daddy I put this there, or start up accounts that they don't know about. Hello? That account is just for me. And so you could be watching that as a child and think, oh, that's how I should do as a woman.
Yeah.
Right? And there are other examples we can give. So how do you know somebody has trust issues? And then we'll deal with. How do you know?
One of the key things, and you were bringing some of the points about what can break trust, we'll go to that after.
Yeah.
One of the things that is very clear with persons who have trust issues is that they do not know how to be vulnerable. That's one of the key things you see.
They can't express their inner feelings.
Well, they can't express their inner feelings because they're not able to communicate freely and openly. Yes, so they have that issue there. They may be always questioning and re-questioning actions and motives. So you do something and they're saying, how come you did that, or why did you do that, or how come you do that this time? There's always a question as to why or why not, right? So they question a lot the motives of the person. You also have that individual who may try to build alliances with persons around them so they can try to, in other words, kind of get information, get things around. So it's often a place where the individual is not able to feel confident or comfortable with the other person, but they're always trying to find a way to see how they could stay ahead of the game. When it's not really a game, it's a partnership.
Yeah, that's right. And so, how can trust be broken? How can trust be broken? There are many ways. We're just going to give you some of them. Well, we know this one: infidelity, cheating. If you want to break trust in a relationship, is cheat.
Yep.
Yep.
Deal breaker.
Deal breaker. Deal breaker in relationships. That's one of the ways that you will lose your partner's trust. Cheating. And the cheating is not just when you get physical, yes, or there's intercourse, or there's any physical inappropriate touching and so forth. But it can also be that you sent inappropriate messages online, on your phone. You were hiding some kind of connection that you had with someone. So infidelity, people think infidelity is just that you have the physical interaction. The actual infidelity started before the physical interaction actually came across.
So the Bible says that too, that everything starts in the mind.
Yeah.
Before you do the action.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we encourage, please don't cheat on your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is. Yes. And also lying. Somebody said that.
Yeah,
yes, Sister Facey, lying, definitely. So, and the lying can be all kinds of lying. You have lying of omission, you have a lying of commission. Yes. So you leave out some information. You don't.
And then the issue there is that it's the motive. The motive is to deceive.
That's right.
So sometimes, no, you're not saying that lying, you have good lies or bad lies, because lying is just lying. But when that core motive is just to deceive in a way to, like, disconnect from the issue. So I don't want them to ask me anything else. Let me just say what they want to hear and move on. That can really scar a person and show the person, if they find out the truth, which ultimately most times happens, that issues of trust were not well established in that relationship.
Yeah. And then you have withholding. Well, that's kind of lying. Withholding or keeping something back.
Yeah. But there's also issues with, remember, in marriages and other relationships, not only the words, but you hold back affection.
Oh, yeah.
You hold back affection, you hold back attention. So sometimes trust cannot be built in a relationship because you're holding
back.
The vulnerability is not there,
That's
right? And then you have this big one where people hold back finances. Now, if you're in a marital relationship, or if you're dating in a serious way, you're courting, you intend to get married. Now, you don't spend all the money on the person, but there has to be that mutual respect where I don't feel that the money is yours or whatever, but there has to be that mutuality and respect with that. So when you hold back emotion, affection, when you hold back attention, when you withhold finances, when you withhold the truth, these things can cause trust issues.
Yes. Breaking your promise. That can eventually result in trust. So none of us are perfect. Some promises will be broken for different reasons. Maybe you just didn't get the time. Maybe it just slipped you or what have you. But if there is a continual breaking of promises, then trust eventually will be eroded.
Because you should actually not a person of your word.
That's right.
We can't trust your word, yeah.
So constantly breaking. And then when we mentioned this, refusal to share feelings. Yes, we mentioned that already. So what are the ways we can repair the breach then? How do we build back the trust? Somebody on my Facebook page, when I put the comment, said, I think they said, very interested, it cannot never be repaired. I think she's watching right now. It can never be repaired. There's an extent to which in some relationships, that's why some relationships go bad. That's why some marriages never recover, because they were never able to build back up the trust. But we believe that that trust can be reestablished. And we're going to tell you some ways in which you can do so. And if this is not for you now, remember, you can, anybody who you know going through this, you might be able to share with them and guide them and share this life with someone.
Can I be the contrary one for a moment?
That's all right.
And say that there are some instances where trust cannot be rebuilt? No, we're not talking about. Well, let me be careful because we're talking about people of faith. So we know God can do anything.
Yeah.
But we have to understand that although we are people of faith, there are many people of faith who have not allowed God to lead their lives.
That's right.
And so the relationships are going bad, their friendships are going bad, and they're not allowing God to direct them into how to move, how to restore, how to have, build reconciliation. But there's some instances where
it cannot be.
Yeah, and
right.
It may not be wise
for
that to happen because of the things that
have been done. So we want to say this clearly. We want marriages to succeed. Yes. We want relationships to do well. But I don't believe that every single relationship will recover. We don't think so. And it's based on what it is too.
Yeah.
So if the person is beating you, and normally when somebody's abusive, they say, well, I won't do it again, then they beat you again. Well, I won't do it again, and they beat you again. Please don't wait for the next one. We know it's not easy to just walk out. We know there's trauma there. We hope that the person will have support and so forth. But if you have the power, the ability to come out, then please don't spiritualize it. Some leaders, some pastors say, well, stick in the marriage. God wants marriages. We know God wants, but God don't want you to be beat up and beaten up to a pulp. So in a case like that, it's really hard to restore. In a case of domestic abuse, it's really hard.
Or chronic infidelity.
Chronic infidelity.
Where the person is saying, yes, I'm going to stop, and they don't.
And they do it over and over.
And the thing
even one is too much.
Yeah. And 1,000 is never enough. We say that with addiction, but sometimes these people may have sex addiction issues, but in the Caribbean, that's something we talk about a lot. So we just say, oh, he just likes sex, she likes sex. But many times that person's continual unhealthy and risky sexual behaviors may point to compulsivity in the behavior that could indicate what you call sex addiction, right? So
somebody said the first lash is hot water for them. That's I believe that.
That is so hot water in them?
No. Oh, that's what you meant. Sydney. Well, no, we don't want it to kill the person. But when the person crosses that line for the first time, it's a good time to get things in order. By that I mean, it may not mean it's the end of the marriage, but you need to put down your foot immediately, and then you have to put some things in place. We're going to talk about how you build back up that trust. Yes. Yes, that's a given for me. The day you cross that line, you're really crossing a really bad line there, I think. Almost irrecoverable.
But is it? This just came to me as persons are commenting, because some Facey said if the person confesses and doesn't repeat the reason for the mistrust, then only then can it be repaired. That's a good point.
We're going to get into that. Really good, excellent.
But one thing that also causes and makes it harder for reconciliation and for repairing is constant, and we've been saying
we're going to get into that.
Constant disappointment.
Yes, we're going to get into that and what you need to do. But there's some marriages I will not. But I don't tell people to leave their marriages. I don't tell people to get divorces. But you lay everything before them and say, this is what might happen if this continues and so forth. You let people make their own decisions. But if somebody's been beaten to a pulp, if somebody is cheating on you and coming back into your bed and exposing you, then that's going to take a whole lot of work, and we're going to what may be necessary in that case. Marriages have recovered from broken trust.
But can we also bring in the fact that could we discuss this in terms of trusting yourself?
Yes.
So many times people can't build trust in the relationship because they don't have the trust for they don't trust themselves. They don't have that confidence in themselves to take care of themselves, to make the right decisions, to do the things that need to be done. I think our baby's not crying, so I may have to get up for a minute. But you see, what we often do is wait for the other person to change and to do the right things, when it starts with us, starts with the individual looking at themselves and making the changes that have to be made in and of themselves. Yes. And then that could be a good catalyst for the other person to change. But then always remember, you have to keep repeating this. We're not able to change another person.
That's right.
Right?
So how do you repair the trust? How do you strengthen it or get on the right path? Firstly, we believe committing the trust issues to God. We believe it starts there. You go to God. You talk to God. Ask God to help you if you're the person who has trust issues. And then also ask God to help the person if it is the spouse or the person who has the trust issues. So that's the first thing. Second thing, Billy, you want to go?
You own up.
Yes, own up to it.
So you have to be able to own up. Facey spoke about that when she mentioned you have to be able to confess, come clear. The Bible says confess your faults one to another in a marital relationship is important. However, and I'm saying this also from a therapeutic perspective, there's some instances when you do not need to go through the details if you know the details of your breach is going to cause more harm than good. Now, some people like to say, I want to hear everything. I want to know everything. And then when you tell them everything, they get heart attack. So we have to be very careful that even if we're sharing a lot, because sometimes you may want to get the details, you may not always have to have all the, raggedy, intricate details of what took place. But you must own up. You must own up to the fact that your actions or inactions would have breached the trust realm that you have developed in this relationship. That is the person who breached the trust. And I think you must also acknowledge the hurt or the impact that your action or
you have done something wrong.
Right, how it affected the other person. So you may be able to say to that person, I really see how my breaking this bond or this trust has caused you to be uncomfortable or feel unsafe. So you must acknowledge that, right? And then when you're able to own up and acknowledge it, then it is better that is part of the vulnerability. It's better then for both of you to come to a commitment then, okay, this is something that can be repaired and we're going to work together to repair it. So you must own up. You cannot repair trust when you have secrets. If you have secrets, repairing will not be very effective. All right?
So, for example, how many ladies have you been talking to? How many men you have been talking to? Because some of us think that only men cheat. Women cheat too.
Not as much as men. But
not as much. I think women hide it a little better than us, to be honest. In any case, you just come clean. If there were 4 women, don't bother to say it's 2.
Yeah. Because if you find out later it was 4, that is a breakdown again when you're trying to already rebuild.
So if it's 6, just say 6.
Yes.
You probably don't have to go into details in terms of what happened, but don't say it's 1 when you know it was 5.
Yes.
Don't say it's somebody from Jamaica when you know it was somebody from Grenada or Antigua or wherever. Don't say it's not a code. You understand what I mean? Yeah. Say, just be clear, honest. Be honest. Yeah. Because this honesty in this, even if you're telling part of the truth, if a little of it is not the truth, then there can be some issues.
Right.
Now, we have 3 young children, and one has decided that they're going to interrupt tonight. So I am going to allow Billy to continue, and hopefully I can join you back.
Okay, so we're looking at what can be done to repair the relationship. So in addition to owning up, it's important to communicate. Now, we can't say this enough. Right, we said that earlier, Celia, that not all relationships can be saved or salvaged, as you're correctly saying, because sometimes the damage is too intense. It has been going on for too long. Think about a rotten board. Like if you have a roof and you have termites in it, sometimes you can just treat the wood, eliminate the termite, and you can save that piece of wood. But sometimes the termites have been there so long, it has eroded the very structure of the board and you cannot use it. You have to replace it fully, right? And sometimes relationships are like that because the trust has been eroded. But communication becomes such an important part of restoring the relationship. So think about how you build the relationship. relationships are built with open, honest, continuous communication. And I think Neville and I agree to that. When he comes back, I'll let him share a little bit. One of the things that we have noticed is that a lot of men are very poor communicators. Very poor. Well, people like to say women chat too much, women chat too much, and men don't talk at all. The truth is, we need to be effective communicators. And we have to also understand that even though we're not speaking with our mouths, we are communicating with our actions. We are communicating with our inactions. As a matter of fact, your inaction is action in and of itself. And so we must be able to communicate when we were building. We started out by talking about coming clean with the issue. If you did it, say you did it. If you didn't do it, say you didn't do it. So we must be able to communicate that. And then going from there, there is that communication of the expectations or the way forward. So you start generally by saying, can this be repaired? It's not only a relationship, think about a friendship. Think about a work relationship. Sometimes something happened on the job with somebody, a trusted colleague, or something happened with a friendship, with a platonic friendship, and you're thinking, can we even be friends again? But you have to have that conversation. If you keep skirting around the issue and not communicate about that, then it will be difficult, because then there's still things that are hidden. And again, we say, if you conceal things, you can't heal from them, right? So we must communicate. And I'm saying again, you have to be open and honest and persistent with your communication, not to nag. Not to nag. So I remember last week Nevin spoke about the 3 T's with communication: tone, time, and type, the type of words. We're not nagging, but we're continually saying, how are things? One of the things we like to do in our marriage, I'm generally the one who does it a lot. I would say, so what is the state of the union? At first he didn't get it. But ever so often I check in. What is the state of this union, this marriage? How are things? We're checking in, and that leads to communication. That leads to us talking about, well, I didn't like that when you did that last week, or I really appreciated that, or I've been thinking about this coming up. So you can communicate, and that helps to show that you can now make a commitment to repair and rebuild this relationship. I hope Nevin can come back soon. So some persons are saying, yes, men generally don't communicate because they're not taught. And it is something that both men and women have to learn and unlearn. That is correct. One of the things you have to deal with, and even in our training, in mine especially, is that we know our culture plays a big role in communication. We have a way of telling our children, especially back in the day, even in my day growing up, hush them out, or children should be seen and not heard. So we were not very good at encouraging vocal discussion in terms of sharing your views. And if a child shared a view, they thought the child was rude. And so children learned, and they grew up into teenagers, they grew up into adults who learned to just shut their mouth and only speak when they're spoken to, answer when they're called. And so you go into that relationship with the same thing. So here's one of the things where trust gets broken, especially where infidelity comes up. There are needs in the relationship, but because you're not being taught to communicate, you're not able to share openly and honestly your feelings, your wants, your expectations, you move in silence, feel hurt, feel rejected, feel like you're not having your needs met, and then you go and get it somewhere else, sometimes maybe where you get to communicate. So again, I'm just reinforcing the fact that communication is really, really important in rebuilding and also in building the trust. All right? We're told that not every teeth that glitters is gold. That is very true. So we have to try every spirit in the relationship. And, I like that point in terms of rebuilding the trust, because we have to be able to weigh the person's words on the balance or the scale of genuineness. So the person is saying, yes, I want to repair, I want to rebuild. But then they say it with their mouth, but go back and do the same thing. Sometimes they may do it in a lesser portion, but they're still doing the same thing. They maintain the principle of dishonesty. They maintain the principle of infidelity. They maintain the principle of untrust, irresponsibility, because sometimes that is it as well. So we have to be able to weigh those persons' words and weigh it against their actions. So if the person is saying, yes, I want this to work, we're going to rebuild this relationship because their trust has been broken, but they're saying it, but when you see their actions, it's not adding up to I want to repair it, then there's definitely a problem. I want to add this as well quickly. What I have often seen is that when you're repairing the relationship, the hurt person or the offended partner often feels the need to get revenge. Now, if you have decided, you've communicated and decided we're going to rebuild this relationship, patience and time are two very important principles. You're not going to be able to rebuild the relationship tonight that was broken tonight, tomorrow. It's going to take time and patience because you have broken a heart. You have broken expectations. You have broken a person's spirit. Especially, we have a way of putting people on pedestal in our lives. We find somebody, we love them so much. We think this is the best friend. We think this is the best husband, the best wife. And then we put them on a pedestal. I told a friend the other day, whenever somebody, because we can't control that. Whenever somebody puts you on a pedestal, kneel down. And it's a principle I like to live by. They like to say all kind of nice things about you. Maybe I'm one of those who I've always had trust issues. I've had to deal with that over time. But generally, I've learned the humility. When people put you on a pedestal, kneel down. So you understand, you are grateful for the accolades, but you humble yourself before God and before the persons so that you don't fall off when things go wrong. So we like to have people that we hold in high regard because they love us so much or they treat us so well. And then when things go wrong, we are devastated. You see, the higher you go, the harder the fall. The higher you go, the harder the fall. And so you have relationships where the persons were on pedestal. They were invincible. They couldn't fall. But then trust was broken. Remember, we said it's not only infidelity in terms of extramarital relationships, but then the trust was broken and they fell. And that person who fell, who was hurt, sometimes feels that they feel I need to get back at that person. No, consciously we may not say it. Like, we're not going to go around saying, I'm going to get back at you. I need to get revenge. But it's almost like I need the person to feel what I felt. I'll be honest, I remember years ago in a relationship, I had that. It was a friendship, actually. It wasn't a relationship. It was a platonic friendship, a girlfriend kind of relationship. And I thought, you thought this is your sister friend. And I don't know what happened, but we were young too. And I remember years later saying to her, she was going through something. And I remember saying to her, I'm kind of glad because I wanted to feel how I had felt. And it was sometime after that God showed me that was not necessarily the best response. I wouldn't even say necessarily, it wasn't. Because if you're going to repair a relationship and rebuild a relationship after trust has been broken, you cannot still be pushing for revenge to get back to make the person feel the pain that you felt. So in those moments, patience becomes really, really important, where you wait for that person, you wait on yourself to get back to that place where you can build back effectively. All right? Somebody's saying here, deliverance requires practicing unlearning learned actions. All right, that's a good point. I like the point of the word deliverance, because there's some people who are tied up in bondages, especially when you see consistently having issues in relationships over and over and over again. Sometimes there may be a need for deliverance because the enemy masks himself in so many different things, and so you may need deliverance. And with deliverance, God does that supernaturally for us with deliverance. But then there's an aspect of deliverance where we must do the work. We must do the hard work. We must do the training and retraining and the unlearning and the relearning for us to get back into a better position. All right? So I'm still waiting for Nevin to come back. I hope Callon gets back off to sleep very soon. But we're looking at how to repair the relationship. Okay, so one of the other things that we must do when we are repairing the relationship is that we must forgive. Okay, so I wish Nevin was here to talk about that, because he's a better forgiver than I am. But maybe it's a good thing. So I kind of went into it just now where we talked about not wanting to get revenge while we're working on rebuilding, needing to be patient with yourself, with the partner, both the offender and the offended. But we must be able to forgive. And forgiveness says, I will not hold you not accountable. I will not hold you as owing me anything because of the wrongs that you have done. And what that also helps you to do is not to constantly look back at what was done. Now, people like to say, "Oh, I can forgive you, but I can never forget." And again, I wish Nami was here to say, he will come just now in Jesus' name. I am one who share with my clients, I don't want you to forget. You need to forgive, but you can't forget, because forgetting means that you may miss the lesson. You remember what was done, not to throw it back at the person, but it teaches you a lesson that you must now use to help you go forward and avoid falling into a similar mistake. So we forgive. We forgive. And one of the ways I also teach, so maybe this will be good for somebody, somebody says, personally, I will forgive you, but I will move on. So she's saying, well, this is no reconciliation here. But look at how we look at forgiveness. The Bible talks about a king who forgave a man who owed him, let's use our language, millions of dollars, and because he couldn't pay. And the man went down and saw a guy who owed him $30 and hauled him into prison. Forgiveness is very difficult, especially if the hurt, the breach, was really deep, intense, prolonged. But here's how I look at forgiveness. I always ask persons to do this. Take a pen and a notepad or computer, your screen or whatever you use now, because we don't write so much, although I encourage writing. Writing is therapeutic. Write down the debt that they owe you. A breach in a relationship is a debt. It's a debt. So if that person cheated on you, write down the debt, what they took from you, what they owe you. They owe you back your respect because you embarrassed them by cheating on you. They owe you time because you wasted time building this relationship. You know, you'd like to say that. But write down the debt. After you've done that, so you must be aware of what you lost because of this infraction against you, against your relationship. After you have done that, on the other side, write down what is necessary to rebuild and to repay that debt. So Nevin is coming back. Write down what is necessary to repay that debt. So ask, so I have to talk softer. Okay, so write down how much the debt is and how much you need to get that repaid to you. If you can find a way for that debt to be repaid, ask the person for it. I'm talking about forgiveness. Okay. Ask the person for it. So if you say the person took my peace of mind, go to that person and ask them back for your peace of mind. It's going to sound foolish, but here's the point of forgiveness. This is why. So if that person took your confidence, go back and ask them for the confidence. Write that down. I need my confidence. This is what would make me feel good again, or give me back what I owe. When you're finished, you look at what it takes to get back what you lost and figure out, can you actually get it back? If this person gave you $1 million, would you get it back? If this person died tomorrow, will you get it back? If you cannot get it back, and most times the truth is you cannot, you have to cancel that like bad debt. Those who work in the financial arena know about bad debt. Some banks, they may hike up the interest in the next relationship. You have a higher standard, get hike up your interest. But in this relationship, you realize there's nothing that can give you back what you lost. We can think, we're not talking about that, but when I had to deal with my son and what I thought was the mistreatment of the hospital, I had to sit down and say, okay, if I get all of this, and there's still things that have to be done, but if I get all of this, will Zavion come back? And the answer is no, he's not going to come back. And so I have to take that and put that into the bad debt bucket and write that off and call that I have to forgive and move on. Forgive and move on. So we're just talking about forgiveness, right. And that is just one of the practical ways that I try to help people deal with forgiveness as they're going.
Yes. Did you indicate that you should avoid dwelling on the past.
I was getting to that.
So, one of the worst things you can do if you're going to repair trust is dwell on the past. And please don't remind the person every single time when they slip up all the things that they have done before.
You can be on left too.
I wake up the rest of the children. Yes. So that's very important. Can we go to the next one?
Yes, we talked about patience in between. Good. So consistent action.
Good. Consistent action. The person who was the offender or the one who started the break in the trust has to demonstrate over time that they have changed, that they recognize that they went the wrong direction, and they must be willing to be consistent in terms of demonstrating that in fact they are trustworthy. If there is inconsistency, it will not give the relationship a chance at all. Especially the person who has done wrong. So if you cheated on your wife, or you lied, or you any of those things that we indicated,
or you withheld affection or attention,
yes,
or whatever,
and you keep doing it over and over and over again, come on, there's no way the trust is going to get better.
And that can be more traumatizing, because if you have both come together and made the commitment, we're going to make this work, we're going to fix this, but then you fall back into the negative pattern, what you do is what we call re-traumatize the person and continue to hurt the person by saying, this is not going to work, this person is not trustworthy.
So absolutely important that we are consistent in that effort. Transparency. Now this is one I am big on. There's some people who write on this don't believe in it. If you're going to restore the trust in your relationship, if you're going to have your partner trust you again, especially if you are the offender, then you have to be transparent. In fact, you have to be more transparent than you were before. Some people don't want to hear this, but if you started having inappropriate relationships, especially if you're communicating on your whatever device it is, laptop, whatever it is, WhatsApp, then you have to be willing to be transparent. What do I mean?
Give them the password.
Give them the password. Give them the okay to be able to look at it randomly if they wish. But there has to be transparency. If you breach the trust before, you can't be going out all over the place and you don't indicate, hey, Billy, I'm going to be 30 minutes late.
Or I'm going this place.
Right.
Or that place.
So what happened is that you allow your partner to start to wonder,
is it happening again?
How they 2 hours passed, nothing happened. How they still on the road? It's 12 o'clock in the night. Yes? And so there has to be a commitment to transparency so that you can prove to your partner, whoever it is, that you have actually changed. Unless you're willing to do that, it's not going to restore the trust.
But I'm thinking, this can also work in parental-child relationships, especially teenagers, when they start to branch out on their own, and the parents need to be able to trust their children. That transparency is so important.
Absolutely. So what do you think? We believe that is an important part of the whole experience. There has to be transparency. Yes? And something crossed my mind while I was talking there, that not only do you have to have some level of transparency, well, more transparency, I think you have to put in a big effort. By that I mean, if you're going to prove to your partner that this really matters, you have to go out of your way.
Be extra.
Yes. You have to put extra time. You might have to take some extra complaining too. Yes? Remember we talk about patience? That people don't get over stuff just like that?
Yeah, it takes time.
I know you don't want to hear your partner complain. I don't know you don't want it to bring it up. But you have to be patient because the person is still working through it. Now, we don't encourage a person to keep bringing it up. But you can determine, you can say, well, oh my, get over it now. Oh, it's time to move on. No.
I've heard that with couples that I've worked with.
You have to take it. Is you put them in that situation? Hello?
Yeah.
If you are the one who cheated, you better be willing to take some of the hear it over and over and over and over again until you have demonstrated that you will change. Now, we don't want you to go overboard, but you can't tell the person when their timeline is, because everybody's timeline is different.
Yeah.
Yes?
I want to add two things because we just have a few minutes there, like 8 minutes. One, sometimes it's important to get professional help.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You must talk to a counselor. And we're leaving God for last, not because he's last, because he's supposed to be central.
Yeah, we mentioned God, putting trust.
But how to actually do this. But sometimes, and one of the things I've found, and statistics show it, my experience in counseling has shown, I'm sure everybody who deals with couples have found this. Men generally don't want to go to counseling. They often say, well, nothing wrong with me. So if you want to go, you can go. And that often makes it harder for the trust to be rebuilt, because we're working on this together. You say you want to do it, but let's get help. Sometimes it's not good or easy for you to push the issue back and forth between yourselves, because you've been doing that for the longest while.
And it's not working.
You need a third party. So yes, it's okay to find a counselor. Now, I'm not saying this to promote because of what I do, but my husband knows that I pay my therapist. I have a therapist, and I pay my money to go to see my therapist, because there's some things that he can't help me with, or I don't want him to help me with. That's just the truth. And there's some things that I can't keep pushing around in my head, and so I find somebody that I am confident in and comfortable with to deal with the issue. And so couples should, and you don't want to always wait until things have gotten to the latest part, because that's what happens a lot. People say, oh, counseling don't work. I tried. They went, and they've already made up in their mind, or one of them, because if you have one partner willing, the other one not willing, you need a miracle.
Yeah. Only Jesus could.
Yeah, only Jesus can help you. So you have to do it when you're realizing something is changing, because relationships go through change. Start to say, okay, can we do something? If you make it an ultimatum, many times the ultimatum does not yield.
Right, could be a barrier
that you want. Excellent.
It could become a barrier. Yes, I think the last one we will look at is self-care. What do we mean? How is that possible? We're talking about rebuilding the trust. We believe the self-care is necessary, because as you go through this really tough period, because it's not easy to deal with mistrust, you have to take care of yourself.
Yep. Mind, body, and spirit.
You have to take care of yourself. If you are the offendee, especially, that is the person who was violated, the person who was offended or what have you, you have to take care of yourself.
Can I say something quick with that? And one of the reasons why that is so important, because offense in relationships that break trust affect self-esteem. You see, like infidelity, single people need therapy too. Oh, definitely. You see, like
we're going to talk about that in a moment, quickly.
A relationship was broken because of infidelity or talking behind the person's back. That makes the person who is the victim of that, the self-esteem can be affected. And if you're not allowing yourself to think the right thoughts, you may begin to think, well, something wrong with me. I don't look nice anymore. Maybe I'm not as smart. And so you have to begin to take care of yourself and learn, we said it earlier, learn to trust yourself. Allow God to rebuild you. You have to love yourself. Allow God to pour into you. Remind you that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And you
because
don't
you begin to blame yourself.
Blame yourself.
I am the one.
And don't make the mistake of the person
I am unattractive.
Be your fault. No, it doesn't mean that there's not a responsibility on your part. But you can't take the responsibility of somebody else's action. We said that last week. Your response
is your responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to take care of yourself. Oh yes, single people need counseling.
Yes.
That's part of the problem. We enter into relationships with our issues.
Yeah.
Too many persons enter into relationships with trust issues. Yes? And enter into marriage with trust issues. No, we don't expect you to enter into marriage perfectly. All of us have issues. Some will have 2 big bags that we travel to Florida with to fill up with clothes and so forth. Others will just have a carry-on because you're just going to Trinidad for the day. Yes? But all of us have different sizes, different kinds of baggage. And so just understand that if you submit yourself to counseling, as Nayo suggested,
and the Holy Spirit's
and
working.
the Holy Spirit's working, you enter into marriage not as a quarter person, but a whole person. Remember we said last week, it is not half and half making a whole for marriage. It is two whole persons making that marriage or that relationship what it really should be. Yes? So yes, mistrust issues can arise in relationships of all kinds. And the different causes are many and varying. But there are some ways to get over it. Yes, my dear, my friend who said when it's broken you can't mend it, I believe it can be mended. Yes, I believe that trust can be built up. And it may not return to what it was. But here's the good news. It can pass what it was before if you allow the process to happen. Yes?
And just to say, as we just wrap up, because the time is up, I mean, we expect you as people of God, even if you're not, to allow God to use the situations to build. That's actually a muddy puddle there. So pray together. You know, it may not be something that you have done before, and you know, you may not feel comfortable, but when you want change, you have to do something that you're not accustomed to, right? You have to do something different. So pray together. Find time to sit down and talk to each other. Study the Word of God together. And if it's possible, connect with another couple, another friend, or another group that could help you walk through it without having to share all the details. Right. So it seems it is very important that you don't allow God to be outside of the process, to be an observer, but bring him in. Let him be the center of all that you do, because it's hard on your own. You need the grace of God to help you overcome trust that is broken.
Yes. And somebody said, how do you deal with somebody who has trust issues? You can also help. If you are transparent, if you go out of your way to that can become a burden, I think, over time. But if you can demonstrate to the person that you can be trusted, hopefully that person will eventually start to trust you.
Yes.
Well, we had an eventful night tonight. Callan went back to sleep, praise God. Let's hope that he sleeps right through the night. But of course, Billy is excellent. So
thank you.
We are so happy that you took the time. We know this is a precious time. For many of us, whether you're single, married, or you have children, this time, the night is important. So thank you for taking the time. What we want you to do is go back and listen to it if you wish, but share it with somebody, somebody that may benefit. Just share it on your page. Thank you. And this has been Muddy Puddles.
Yes.
We believe God can use any situation.
Any situation, no matter how bad, how bleak, how ugly, how nasty it is. God can take it and make something so beautifully unrecognizable.
To the point that you can jump in it.
Yes.
And praise God in it.
Yes.
And give him the glory.
Yes.
Have a wonderful night.
Have a great night, everybody.
God bless you.